Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Talk Show. We are live and anything can happen. Welcome to Series 4. Yes, Series 4 already, Episode 1. And we're kickstarting Series 4 with a fantastic guest. Before we go over to George, I want to let you know that this is powered by, which side am I on? Essential Print Services, which is my very own business, and we're celebrating 10 years in business this year, which is phenomenal. Time is absolutely flying by, which it usually does on the Tuesday Talk Show. So I'm going to go straight over to George from Hodsock Priory. How are you, George? Hello.
I'm very well indeed, Yvonne. Thank you very much indeed for having me here today.
Excellent. I'm so pleased to have you on today as a guest. George and I met back in January. We're now in June as this goes live. We've met on a peer-to-peer masterminding group, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. I think you've enjoyed it as well, haven't you, George?
Oh, it's been amazing. Yes, 10 others and trying to help each other out with problems that are quite difficult to solve within your own business. And as soon as you share them, suddenly they become something of an opportunity.
Absolutely. It's been absolutely incredible. I've really enjoyed it. We've never met in real life. So bizarrely, one day, hopefully, we shall all meet as a group. So going to dive straight into the questions, and George. So tell everyone watching this live at home or in the office, let us know, how on earth did you become the owner of a business?
Well, in my case, this is a family business, and we established ourselves here at Hotsock in North Nottinghamshire in 1765. So we've been doing this for 250 years so far. I'm the ninth generation.
You look so well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And a lot of what we do is thinking about what we're doing now is borrowing it from the next generation. So Hotsock is a private country estate, and in the middle of it is a beautiful Victorian house with a Tudor gatehouse, which is now a wedding venue, has been our family home, built by one of my ancestors 200 years ago, and surrounded by a beautiful garden. And there is some woodland where we grow cricket bat, willow trees, and we have a farm as well as some cottages. So there's a broad mix of things that we do. We're probably best known for our snowdrops. People flock from all over the world to come and see them in February, when we're allowed to open, which we couldn't, unfortunately, for the first time this year.
So you're an avid cricketer. Do you get to play with the very own cricket bats made from your woodland?
I do. It's a very nice touch. And
wow.
I'm currently playing for Retford, my local town, in their second and third 11. And it's a nice touch to go out and say, I grew this tree that made this bat. It always sparks a conversation and gets things going.
That's amazing. So what is your role there at Hotsock then, George?
I am currently on special projects, so things that need sorting. And certainly last year, when we had the time that we had available, no weddings were allowed. We caught up on 10 years of maintenance. And that was wonderful to have the luxury of that time to do it. So the place has never looked better. It looks restored and renewed. And we had an old, hard tennis court tucked away in the garden that was unloved, and we weren't playing tennis on it. So it was time to turn it into an outdoor wedding ceremony area. And we had our first wedding there last week. And it's deeply romantic. It's surrounded by flowers and trees. And it's a wonderful place to start married life.
Oh, amazing. That sounds incredible. What also sounds incredible, though, is your career history. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, I mean, I always knew that Hotsock was probably going to be a big part of my life. So I was determined to make sure I had a career elsewhere that would help me when it came to running part of the family business, to have had that experience working for a massive global company, one called Live Nation, who are one of the world's biggest concert promoters, ticket sellers, and venue owners. So I started work in the West End of London, worked on Disney shows like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, before being offered a chance at age 25 to help manage the Hammersmith Apollo, a very historic, iconic venue known as the Odeon in the 60s, 70s and 80s, and rechristened the Apollo when Riverdance went in there in the 90s. And the time I arrived, about 2000, they needed to put it back as a reputable hardcore rock and comedy venue. And if you've ever seen Live at the Apollo on the TV, that's obviously a very beautiful place, a pinnacle of your career to play to that audience. And as a music fan, to have met some of the mega stars of music who graced that stage, most of them, I must say, on their second time round in their careers. But it was a real joy, and I really cut my teeth there. I learned everything there is to know about how to give people an amazing time in a historic building and everything that might possibly go wrong.
What a place to have an education like that. Goodness me. That is amazing. So I think everyone watching this, George, and if you are watching this live or on capture, please just send your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. I think everyone wants to know what it's been like as a venue over the past 12 months. It's been really, really surreal experience, but what's it been like? How's it affected you and also the business? And what have you learned from it? What are your COVID
Huge amount. I think COVID taught us that, okay, our family values, which guide us through everything. We always have a very long-term view. We can look back a couple of hundred years and go, how have we coped in the past with world wars, with Spanish flu, with other things? We've got the diaries, we've got that connection with the past, which helps us deal with the now and the future. And I think we just felt, look, we're very good at kindness, at helpfulness, and at patience here. So let's see what we need to do. The immediate crisis for us was to ensure that every bride and groom, and there were over 100 who were going to be affected ultimately by COVID and having to have their wedding postponed, they needed care and attention and compassion. So we needed the best team working with them on the phones, on email, and to comfort them and reassure them that their wedding will go ahead, but probably not as planned, but eventually. So keeping everybody as our customer and keeping them happy. There was a lot of emotion poured into that. At the same time, we knew at some point this would end, and we needed to make sure we didn't have an empty order book once restrictions were released. So we've had this magical number of, we've kept 100 customers, couples, that's several hundred families happy, whilst also making sure that the diary for 22, 23, 24 continues to be filled. And when we reopen, we're going to be busier than ever. So we must restore what we've got. We must make sure that the gardens are well kept, that the house is painted top to toe, and that anything that's a bit weak and wobbly is replaced and upgraded. So we are in a strong position now. And it's been a joy to take the time and be patient, and innovation comes when you stop and calm down. So we're in a healthy spot now.
We're just talking off air, weren't we, George, about how, it's gone from the venue being very subdued and, not too sure about what's going to happen, through to you've got back-to-back weddings, which is a great test, isn't it, about how you want to go moving forward as well. So would you say that relentless marketing and making sure that's consistent throughout COVID, has that been one of your successes now?
That's been incredibly important to keep that as a constant investment. And it's meant that when it's come to recruitment, because now we know we've got a very full diary, we've needed extra staff, people have come to us to go, I want to work for you. You look exciting. You look interesting. You've got a great team. What you do is magical. And it's been very hard to keep the content constant, especially on social media and through our websites and press releases. But it's been worth it. And we've had a lot of photo shoots. We've had a lot of trying to predict what the trends will be, working with the likes of Bride Book and Brides Magazine, always trying to look at what colors, what jewelry, what shoes, what suits, what's going to be in fashion, and try and lead that, say this is what is going to be a fabulous wedding in 21, 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your Instagram stories, for instance, and not just one platform, whoever's posting them are doing an absolutely cracking job. It just looks phenomenal. It's making the venue look absolutely beautiful. So yeah, hats off to you for maintaining that marketing throughout COVID, because many people just sacked it off, didn't they? Thinking, well, it's not worth it, let's just not do it. But it's been so important. We've been definitely the same. We've made sure that we've always posted things throughout COVID, but changing the messages, of course, from sales through to we can help, let me signpost you somewhere for grants and advice. So yeah, always making sure that your marketing is at the forefront of your sort of tactics for business. So what is your COVID keeper moving forward then, George? What have you changed throughout lockdown that you're going to keep doing for the future?
Eating for health and moving for joy. I think those are two things I've definitely looked after myself and recommended that everyone on the team does. It's quite easy when you work antisocial hours to skip meals or to not look after yourself, think, oh, I'm walking around the venue all day. I've probably walked 10 miles. But in fact, that's not necessarily good enough to reset your head and to be in the best place to make the best decisions. And giving ourselves freedom to be creative, to not be afraid to challenge what it is that we do. If something's been difficult for a number of years, then why is it difficult? Can we make it easier? Is it important that we do it anymore? And that's just come out of just healthier, calmer conversations. I look forward to having more of those.
Excellent. Now, I hear that a lot from other small business owners as well, how it's forced them to reevaluate just everything. And many people say, why didn't I do that before? It's just taken this to happen to force us into those situations, which is crazy. So what would you say is the hardest thing about running a business, especially in your industry? What is the hardest thing about it?
Well, it's constant, and customer service has to be top notch. And I certainly found myself worn out by trying to achieve perfectionism. And that is too much for anybody. You need a big team to share that load. So keeping very, very high standards, which is often your own doing, not necessarily what people are expecting or what is being asked of you, is very hard. Governance is incredibly important as well. It's quite easy to spin off on a tangent without properly evaluating whether it's the right thing to do. So having lots of different people as your devil's advocate or your mentor or as a guide, and that can best comes from within the team and within yourself. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And I think communication is probably the very hardest thing to strike a balance correctly with. So I try wherever we possibly can to have as many informal discussions as possible. Most of the best decisions are made leaning on a fence or in a doorway rather than round a board table.
Absolutely, I love that. And would you say having that external mastermind group has been helpful as well? Because I don't know about you, George, but because you're in it, even when I had a team, you can talk to them and bounce ideas off them. But sometimes people may often say things that you want to hear rather than what they actually think. So to have a group of people that are not connected emotionally or financially, I think it's been absolutely invaluable. How have you found it?
I agree with that. And I've always found it's very revealing what you tell to a complete stranger. I remember my very first boss on my first day when I worked at a West End theatre called the Dominion. He said, right, I'm going to take you out for lunch. I want to find out everything there is about you. And he learned nothing about me because he just told me entirely everything about himself and everything he was disgruntled about. And I'm still friends with him. And I often refer back to that lunch and he goes, well, what did I tell you? And I can reveal everything about his private life and about what the company was doing. And just in that half hour, I learned a lot about what I needed to know, who you need to butter up, how you need to succeed, and where it's best to apply your energy. So yes, talking to a group of outsiders, it is very, very easy to free flow conversation that you otherwise wouldn't have with even your own family.
There's fewer repercussions in that instance, I find as well. You've talked about being really busy and the capacity of the weddings are, we're back to back at the minute for most of the weeks now. Has there been a time, pre-COVID or during COVID, where you have been overwhelmed with something in your life and that has resulted maybe in things not going quite to plan, maybe even a failure? Have you experienced that? Can you describe a time when that may have happened?
Yes, constantly. I think I'm fairly indifferent to failure, and I'm often quite delighted if there's a bit of an argument over how something went. And if we're looking back at, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we tried outdoor cinema. We thought, let's give that a go. We've got, some midweek dates. We have occasionally these perfect evenings. Why don't we take a gamble where we can have an inflatable screen? We'll put on a mixture of classics, blockbusters, and ones which we know will be family friendly. And we had everything. We had torrential rain, we had hailstorms, we had beautiful evenings, and we only managed to crack it once with Mamma Mia on a perfect summer's evening, and 400 people turned up and sang along, and it was ideal. And you can compare that with, we put Moana on and thinking that would be a big family hit, and about 3 people turned up and had the best time of their lives, but it didn't work. And afterwards you sort of lick your wounds a little bit and say, okay, well, economically that was a failure, but what have we learned? Those that came and had a brilliant time could easily bring 10 people each next time. So if we're ready to do that again, if we're prepared to take that risk again, we'd know what to do next time. So write lots of notes and think about it next time. I think that's one of many examples of where we've tried stuff that hasn't worked and we're not afraid to give it a go, because often the most mad idea, like opening up the gardens to see if people might want to look at our snowdrop, suddenly becomes a 30-year success for us. So we'll give it a go.
So you touched on earlier that, you know, you're looking at the past to help you with the future. You mentioned diaries. Do you actually have physical diaries of the history of the Priory?
We do, yes, and they're very revealing. When you've got a landscape that hasn't changed and you've got maintenance issues that will always be the same, rainwater coming in through broken gutters, or trees becoming overgrown and needing to be cut back. If that tree was planted 100 years ago and it's still there today, it's still causing the same kind of, it's lovely to provide the shade, but when it starts shedding branches and you might have a wedding couple underneath it having photos taken, it's lovely to refer back to, go, okay, I can see who planted that, I can see why they planted it or when they planted it, perhaps to celebrate something in their lives. And to have that connection is very meaningful, and it becomes more than just trimming back a tree. I think the most poignant diaries for me are the ones throughout the Second World War, where we had 42 teenage land girls living in the house here with my great aunt.
Wow.
My grandfather, her brother was away fighting in the war. So it was very much a female conclave here. Apparently it was a bit like St. Trinian's. It was total chaos and brilliant, good fun. They used to have parties in our Tudor Gatehouse and sneak Italian and German prisoners of war in from the local prisoner of war camp, and they all worked on the land for 4 or 5 years during the 1940s. Those kind of stories are very poignant, and you realize you're just part of a longer story when you're dealing with a place like this.
I love the idea, and I'd hope that you've got them on display somewhere, because I'd find that fascinating to look through. So what are the advantages then of running your own business, especially one in your sector? Is there any, you know, what sort of things do you enjoy being at the top?
I love the freedom to be able to take a holiday when I need to, not when I'm committed to, and to be able to go to everything that my children are involved in, bringing up 4 children when they were younger. It was lovely to be able to go to every event, every concert, every play, every party with them and watch them grow up. And I've loved the flexibility of antisocial hours anyway. If you know you've got to work on a Saturday or a Sunday or late into the evening, you've got to take a chunk of time for yourself when it suits you and when you can. And I love the habit of that. And I think that's a really healthy place to get into. So
I'm sure that over the past 12 months, you've evaluated many things about yourself and the business. If you could change one thing right now about the business or even the industry in general, what would it be and why?
Well, it's an expectation that food and drink should be a bargain, should be cheap. I'm struggling with, and knowing what it takes to, as we have grazing cattle and sheep here, for example, knowing what it takes to bring up a beautiful animal like that, or to grow the crops that eventually end up in our supermarkets or on our plates. And if there's one area where we're always being hammered down on, it's on the price of food and drink, with easy comparison with well, a bottle of wine in a supermarket costs me £4.99. Why are you charging me £20, for example? That it's very difficult to justify the fact that, well, I'm serving it to you in a uniform with a polished glass and a smile on my face, and the sun is shining outside, and you're going to have a wonderful day. Surely that has a little bit of extra value. I think that's one of the things that is going to be impossible to change, but it's starting to rear its head a lot, I think, with expectations of what hospitality should be and what it should cost. Not a lot that I can do about it, but it's a conversation that needs to continue to happen.
Absolutely. We've got a shout out this morning from Mark Harrison from Me&D Charity. Morning both. While this place is gorgeous and only 15 minutes from their lodge. So Me&D Charity, they have a lodge at Sherwood Hideaway where they help families to have some respite from some trauma that they're going through. So it's great to hear from you, Mark, this morning. Hope you're well. George, what is essential in your business that you may be underinvesting in right now? It's a tricky question, but can you identify with anything under that?
Definitely. Research and development. What else could we be doing? And there's an overwhelming number of possibilities and the potential to do pretty much everything here. And we don't spend enough time exploring that at the moment, but I'm changing that. I think you've heard me talk about a new era vibration, Nev, which you've christened it. Thank you. That I find incredibly helpful to put aside an entire day and go, we're not worrying about the day to day. We're not going to answer the phone today. We're going to take ourselves off for a walk, maybe off site, and we're really going to think about, well, what is it that we do? What else could we do? Why do we continue to do the things that we do the way that we do? And that is incredibly valuable time. And we're not putting enough into it, but we're just starting to get there, because we're in danger of heading towards a cliff. And being in a car, that's no use. You need to be in an aeroplane by the time you get there. So I'm keen to make sure we're not heading towards a cliff.
George, why do you think that is? In small business owners, I'm sure, most of us have gone through that, where we can identify an opportunity, a good opportunity, and we're excited by it, but we don't seem to be motivated enough to find the time and the space to pursue it. What is that all about? What do you think that's about?
I don't know. And the only way I've managed to create that breathing space is by doing a joint venture with someone else. It's looking at all the operational stuff that was soaking up all of my time, from placing orders for wine and champagne to fixing anything that gets broken, to organizing staff rotas or cleaning or whatever it needed to do. That it's all consuming and wonderful, but it's totally operational and nothing looking forward. So jumping into a beautiful joint venture with someone who is very good at that, and in fact better at that than we were, is a great release for me to go, great, the stuff I know is important for the day-to-day running is being taken care of by somebody else, and this relationship is working extremely well. And only until I've reached that point can I have place to breathe. It's taken 15 years for me to get to that position. Others may have got there faster. I don't mind. It's the pace that we go, and that's what it's taken for me to get to that place.
No, that's good advice and a good insight as well, George. Thank you. If you're listening to this or watching this live or on catch up, please just send your comments and questions. We would love to hear from you, and also press the subscribe button. That's really important too. Right, there's lots of people watching this, George, who will have already got a business, or several businesses in fact, but there will be some people who haven't taken that leap of faith yet. What advice would you give someone starting out in business?
Research, and have faith that you'll never feel ready. And only by taking the leap will you start to reveal your superpower. And your strength is lying just behind your fear. So if you're feeling adrenaline pumping through your body because you're worried about, how am I going to be able to afford to live? What's it going to be like not having a regular salary? What happens if it doesn't work? All of that is keeping you safe, and that is your fear. Sitting behind your fear is your superpower and your strength. And you need to listen to that a lot more and change the metrics a bit, change the language to go, what if this is phenomenally successful? Start getting worried about how successful you could be. how am I going to be able to cope with all this extra work? How exciting is that? What's it going to be like to recruit a big team? Just change the potential of what might occur to you and use that fear to drive your potential. It'll make a big difference.
I'm just frantically scribbling down all that fantastic advice then. I was like, what? Stop, don't too quick. But yeah, that's really give me goosebumps with you saying things like this, you know, strengths behind your fear. Definitely resonate with that, especially in the early days of starting essential print services. So again, thanks for that. Really fantastic advice. Now I'll summarize that in the show notes. So what will your business look like when it's done? When do you think will be the pinnacle moment where you think, right, it's done, it's how I want it? Is that ever possible? What does it look like?
Well, for us, this is about borrowing it from the future generations and passing it on in a better condition than the one in which we found it. So we've made massive progress with that. We've modernized a Victorian building that would otherwise be hanging around our necks and be too expensive to run. And we would have a farming business that would be lacking behind the times. Modern farming is incredibly technological. It's very slick. So again, we've got a joint partnership with our neighboring farmer to help run the farm, and we've become essentially landlords, running a beautiful building and the farm and tenanting it out to give us breathing space to think about what else we want to do. So I would like to do more restoration and renovation of our buildings, in particular our Tudor gatehouse, which all we've managed to do this generation is make it weatherproof. So it's not going backwards with water leaking into it and that kind of thing. But I would love to see that building, which was used to entertain Henry VIII, who came to fly a hawk from the roof, and he had lunch there on a day in the summer of 1541, to bring that building back to life after 500 years and allow access to it. That's something that would make me feel, if I can get that behind me, then I know I'm done. But if it doesn't happen, I think we've done a huge amount to be able to pass this on to future generations, whoever that is, whether that's our children or cousins or somebody else's family, then we'll have done our bit.
The stories of that place is just mind-blowing. Just, yeah, you could write a book or maybe a TV show, George, about Hodsock Priory.
Yeah, that'd be good.
See that happening. See that happening for sure. So apart from that particular restoration, what else is on your bucket list? What else is left to do?
Plenty. Personally, certainly, I'd like to go and watch cricket in India. I think it's an amazing country, and a lot of the cricket bat willow trees that we grow are exported to India because the birth rate there is phenomenal, and that is the sport of India. So as a country, I think in the UK, we're only exporting 500,000 bats when we need to be more like 3 times that. That's something I would like to do. More hill walking, more mountain climbing, more getting views. And in terms of what specifically I'd like to do at Hotsock, there's a whole floor in the attics here where they were last lived in by the land girls in the 1940s. I would love to restore those back into extra bedrooms, either for our staff here or for guests coming to stay at a wedding. So there's plenty on the horizon for us.
And what the stories those walls could tell from those rooms. My goodness, that'd be amazing. That has been absolutely fantastic. George, if anyone's got any comments and questions and want to contact you, where's the best place they can find you?
Well, hotsockpriory.com is our website, and you can find George Buchanan on LinkedIn. Please do get in contact. Always very happy to connect.
Wonderful. I'm going to wrap up the show there, George. I'm going to come back to you right after for your final thoughts. So have a think about that whilst I wrap up the show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Tuesday Talk Show with my very special guest, George Buchanan from Hotsock Priory. I'm Yvonne Gorman, CEO of Essential Print Services on Pride Park in Derby. And Tuesday Talk Show is powered by Essential Print Services. So thank you to my business for making it happen. It's been absolutely fantastic kickstarting Series 4 of the Tuesday Talk Show. If you've enjoyed it, please send me a comment. Any reviews and comments will be extremely grateful for. They really do help the show and the algorithms. And also press the subscribe button, give us a comment and a like. We would love to hear from you. But right back over to our very special guest, George Buchanan. from Hotsock Priory, for your final thought for today. Over to you, George.
Well, thank you very much indeed for involving me in today. I think something that I've been working on in the last year or so is realizing so much of what I do and do well has come from within. And I haven't needed to be validated by someone else or something else. And a message I'm giving myself is, don't let your energy leak into other people, places, or things. Use it yourself. Use that to fuel your superpower, and it'll get you through each day with a spring in your step.
Well, that is super, George. Literally super, George from Hotsock Priory. Thank you so much for being our guest today, George. And we'll say goodbye there. See you next time on the Tuesday Talk Show. See you later.
Bye.